channel. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a story time, but before I do get into it, I do want to first introduce myself. My name is Alex and I am a teen mom here on YouTube, but we all know you came here for the title on the video, so let's just get right into it. This is set way back in middle school, so this is going to be like 7th and 8th grade, and I'm 19 years old now, if that kind of gives you any idea. So back in 7th grade, I was pretty comfortable in school. I was very outgoing and super talkative. Like, I was that annoying wannabe class clown. Looking back on it now, I kind of want to strangle myself. Basically, all the teachers were very annoyed with me. Like, I was very good in school, but I just was really loud and obnoxious. So me and teachers kind of butt heads. There was this one teacher though, we're gonna call him Mr. Smith. He was my history teacher, and at first we did butt heads because I was so loud and he literally moved me to the freaking corner of the class and I still was talking to everybody. Like, it just wasn't working out. But when the time came for the parents to come in and meet your teachers, I don't know if every school does that, I'm assuming so. Basically, the parents would come in, they would meet all the teachers, talk about like the grades. It wasn't like a RPC, like it was mandatory for every parent to go in. My mom is just like moi, so the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. She could literally get along with everybody. So her and Mr. Smith got along pretty well. Nothing sketchy there or anything like that, don't get any ideas. She just talked to him really well. So from there on out, he looked at me a lot differently. He was just a lot nicer to me. Actually, a lot of my teachers were. But besides the point, we kind of developed like a friendly relationship. We would just pick on each other. I would still be my loud, obnoxious self, but he would just kind of make more fun of it rather than being strict with it and literally irritated with me. So this happened like the entire year, and eventually the next year in 8th grade, he decided that he wanted me to be his student aide, which wasn't really the best idea because, again, I was loud, obnoxious, and not really the best example. But the following year comes, and I was his student aide, and this happened probably about like half the year. So by this point, we've known each other for a good year and a half, right? And not an actual year because obviously the school year is not that long. Theoretically speaking, we've known each other for a year and a half of school time. And so we became super close. Not like close like having dinner together or anything like that, or like any outside, conversations or anything outside of school, but we just became really close. I actually called him Grandpa, if that gives you any idea. And you could literally ask any of my old schoolmates, I literally called him Grandpa. It wasn't like a sexual relationship or anything like that. I do want to, put that out there. Like, it wasn't anything like that. It was just, we were like very close. He just looked out for me. So one day at lunch, I was sitting with my group of friends and we were all just kind of talking. One of my friend's girlfriend, who was an underclassman, if that makes sense, so she had Mr. Smith for history this year while all of us kind of like graduated out of that. But she forgot like her history homework or something like that. She had to go back to his class. And so it was my friend, me, her, and then another one of her friends. So it was 4 of us, okay? She was kind of afraid that he was gonna get mad, and I was like, nah, if I'm there, it'll be all chill, it'll be cool. So while we were walking over to his classroom, this was like the whole time during lunch, which was like 30 minutes. So obviously the whole school doesn't go to lunch, like it was a pretty big school. So there were still kids going to class, if that makes sense. They just kind of split up all the kids into different lunches. You had like first, second, third, or fourth lunch. We're going to his classroom, messing around along the way, and when we finally got there, a lot of the other kids were lining up, and this is crucial to the story, okay? Basically, in my school, you had to line up against the wall, and whenever the teacher was ready for you to enter the classroom, they would have you enter. I don't know why they had that rule. Sounds more so like a power statement, but that is just the way that it was. So he was waiting outside his classroom, waiting for his line to gradually get longer, obviously, for him to put them inside the class. I'm like, hey, Mr. Smith, and like, we're all just messing around, talking, and he was just like, what are you doing with her? She's trouble. And he was like messing around. So obviously, when you're in middle school, a lot of fads kind of come and go. Like, we had the silly bands, we had like a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So at this time, I don't even know what this was called, but I am gonna show you guys actually. So I pulled my fiance away from all of his video games to show you guys. So this was Mr. Smith. Boom, you see? But given I was 4'11", this guy was much taller than me. It was about right here. So my reaction to him saying, what are you doing with her? She's trouble, was to do that little kick thing. And I then said, oh, shut up, Mr. Smith. And he laughed after the fact. And I want to make that a huge thing. He laughed after the fact. Like, he was like, oh, ha, 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 I'm just kidding. And we were all laughing around. Nowhere near touched his butt. Again, I'm going to make that very important in this story. It nowhere near came close to his butt. He made nothing of like, don't do that. He made no statement about it, right? So we carried on with our day. She got the homework, we went back to lunch. So probably about 2 days later went by, and just to give you a little bit of a backstory of like the person I was in middle school, I was always late. Always late, guys. Always late to school. So and not even just like 10 minutes late, I was like anywhere from like 15 to 30 minutes late. My time schedule was terrible. I didn't even live far from the school. I had no excuse. But I was always in trouble for that. Our school implemented actually this rule, like 3 tardies, you would actually get like a detention, get an in-house, and so on and so forth, right? So I go to school, right? And I'm late. So when you're late, you have to go immediately to the dean's office to get like this little slip because they're super extra, and then you have to grab that slip and go to your teacher just to be let into the door. So I went to the dean's office. One of the student aides was like, she's here. And so I was just like, I don't know, like I just thought because I was late all the time and I've seen the student aide, like it was just kind of like a smart remark, like, oh, she's here, look what the cat dragged in, you know? And so I didn't think anything of it, and our dean came out and was like, oh, like he was just very surprised. Oh, Alex, like, come in. I was just like, wait, how does he know my name? Like, yes, I was late a lot, but we were not on first name basis, okay? So I go inside the room and he sits me down and he's just like, so do you know why you're here? And I was like, to go to school. Like what do you mean? I thought I was being smart with him, and I really wasn't being smart with him because I had no idea what was going on. He was like, no, like, do you know why you're here? Like, why are you here? Think back, why are you here? And I was like, you know, like, I'm so sorry, I was just running really late today. And he was like, no, not because you're late. And I'm just sitting there like, what the f is this guy talking about? Like, what do you mean, why am I here? It's just all like, it's about the situation with Mr. Smith. What is he talking about? What about him? Like, I mean, I'm his student aide. It's all like, well, we're going back 2 days. That whole incident, like, it just went right over my head because it wasn't a big thing. He then begins to tell me with his hands all crossed, sitting there like this, well, we're talking about the sexual harassment that occurred 2 days ago with Mr. Smith. What? I'm literally like sitting there like, dude, am I on like pranked? Also do have to let you guys know, this was the day before spring break. This was like the last school day and spring break was about to happen, right? I'm sitting there baffled, like Mr. Smith gonna walk in and be like, ah, gotcha. Then begins to tell me, do we have to pull in your other friends? I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, like, get my friends, like, what do you mean? And so he then begins to tell me, basically it has come to their attention, he's not naming any names or anything like that, because I'm pretty sure they're not allowed to do that. There has been accusations that I took my hand and, I can't even say it, guys. Like, he then begins to tell me that I took my hand, placed it on Mr. Smith's buttocks, and not only just grabbed his but squeezed it. I squeezed his ass, apparently. And I'm literally like sitting there like, is this guy serious? Like, how can he sit there and say this with a serious face? I burst out laughing, right? Not the best idea, but I burst out laughing because this is utterly absurd. Grabbed his buttocks, and at first I'm like laughing because again, I'm in 8th grade at this point. I'm laughing at the point that he said buttocks. Whoa, 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 whoa. Get your story straight, Mr. Dean. I didn't grab his ass and squeeze it. That's not my type, trust me. He basically said that he was just going to get my friends, bring them into the room, and I wasn't allowed to talk to them for like the rest of the day or about the situation at all because again, they didn't want any stories twisted or anything like that. And then after that, if it's inconclusive, then they would have to get the cameras, which is absolutely absurd because if it's sexual harassment, you would think that this would be taken on a much higher scale, that they would already grab the cameras and like get the police involved. School is over. Like, I don't see them for the rest of the day because I don't have any classes with them. And so of course my ass calls them like, what the f happened? Like, dude, they really think that like you grabbed his butt. They got my back. They got my back. They told what actually happened. And so the next day we get a phone call from the school because now it's spring break. Now like there's no school at all. You have to go to the school. So we go to the school and we have a meeting with the vice principal. Basically they tell me that they are going to suspend me. My mom was livid. Like, my mom was like, but she didn't do this. I was just chilling, to be honest, because I mean that's a whole week off of school. Like, you don't gotta tell me twice, right? I'm just sitting there chilling, let my mom do all the work, and of course she's like going real hard. And And so basically the vice principal tells her that the students had their story straight. However, because they were my friends, that they can't actually take that into hard consideration, which is bullshit, because why would you even get the friends in the first place if they can't take that into serious consideration? Their reasoning for not pulling the cameras was because it was spring break and that they didn't have all of the team members needed to actually pull the cameras. Like a 2-hour meeting, longest meeting of my life. So before you could go back to school when you're suspended, it's like serious, you have to have another meeting with the vice principal. But this time it was the vice principal and the principal of the school, and we're deciding if they were going to expel me or not. And so basically we get in and my mom's like, pull the cameras. Like, I'm not talking to you till you pull the cameras. We're gonna clear my daughter's name. So during this time, I was actually auditioning to get into LVA. And so if you guys don't live in Vegas, you probably don't know what the hell that is. It's a performing arts school. So I have danced my entire life, hip hop, and I was getting in for jazz. So I already got the acceptance letter to LVA. Like, I was going to LVA for high school. It's a magnet school. I was pumped. Like, that was like the high school of my dreams, right? Like, I was like, screw this middle school, let's just skip to high school, right? So basically, when you are going to a magnet school, you can't have any suspensions, any RPCs, any obviously expulsions or anything like that. They want like the top end kids. We're dealing with this whole thing that's going on. We're having a meeting. They're telling us that they're gonna pull the cameras, but I can't go back to school until they do so. This meeting was just kind of another consultation just to see if I guess I'd admit what happened, which again, I didn't do it, so I'm not admitting shit. We get home and then we get another nice call. But this call is actually from LVA. So we get a call from the academy and it was somebody up in the dean's office. It wasn't like the principal or anything like that. And they call my mom and basically say that they are withdrawing me from the school because I am now considered like a bad kid, because I got suspended and it's on my record now. And I don't know if they could actually see it was like for sexual harassment or anything like that. Now, we are not only like done, we're furious. And this school, like there's a waiting list for this school as well. Like it's hard to get into. Like I want to express that so much, like especially as a freshman, because they typically take like the kids that are already going into that school and move them up, right? I was gone from school a week and 3 days. We get back to the school and they said that they pulled the cameras and we just need to have another meeting. So we go in there again with the principal and vice principal, and they basically conclude that I did not sexually harass my teacher, because I didn't. But because I did put my foot on his thigh, it's not necessarily considered sexual harassment because they could see the context of it, but it was insubordination, which again doesn't really make sense because it wasn't like I was arguing with him or anything, but I guess it went along the lines of I wasn't following the rules, because obviously you're not allowed to touch any type of teacher in any way. So I did understand that. Of course, we wanted to try to fight it to get back into LVA. We talked with my middle school and basically it would still be considered an RPC, so I still wouldn't be able to like fight that battle. Not to mention they probably already took one of their waitlisted back inside the school, so like that was already out of the option. It was like a total dream crusher, guys, because I really wanted to be like a professional dancer whenever I grew up. Like that was my dream. And so an LVA gives you the tools to do that. So basically at this point, like I just feel like my life is over. Like I'm a middle schooler, like I feel defeated. In this meeting, we basically talk about like how this is going to affect me in the future as far as like middle school goes. So this is when they really just wanted to dig the knife really deep in, right? They then tell me that I am not allowed to go to the 8th grade dance. So if you don't have like the 8th grade dance in middle school, guys, it's basically prom, but in a much smaller scale, but in middle school. So when you enter as a freshman, you're pumped, guys. You're like, I'm gonna go dance my little ass off at the 8th grade dance, right? Like I was pumped for the 8th grade dance. And I will totally admit, like, I was wrong for doing that, like I guess touching him. I was wrong for doing that, and I could totally admit that now that I'm like 19 years old, my head is a little bit matured. However, I feel that he shouldn't have conveyed the like relationship to be like that. Again, I'm not talking about a relationship like a romantic relationship, but we were very friendly with each other. Like he would hug me and like he would pat me on the back, like he's touched me before. Like I don't know, I feel like we were both in the wrong. You should have drawn the line of teacher and student rather than like friend and friend, you know? Again, I was only in 8th grade. So you also have to put that into perspective that it was an immature mind. So I just feel like it was just all bullshit. Come to find out, I'm back in school now, and I was actually removed from his class. So I am not a student aide for him anymore. I passed by his class and he was standing out there, and of course I went over and like confronted him about this because I was still confused at like, I guess who told. So I go up to him and I was like, hey, like I'm finally back in school, like can you believe that happened? Like I got withdrawn from LVA, like everybody knew like I was going to because I was so excited. And I was just talking to him and he was just like, yeah, like I'm really sorry that I had to do that, but there were a lot of other students out there. I didn't want them to think that they could do that to me as well. I was like, whoa, wait, hold the phone. It was you who told on me? You told on me? And I didn't grab your ass. I didn't want to get myself in more trouble, so it wasn't like I was like balls to the wall ripping this guy a new one. So eventually the conversation got a little bit louder than expected, and a teacher came out of her room, obviously called the dean's office. They came as fast as the po-po. They come and basically just tell me I need to remove myself from the situation. I'm not allowed to speak with him anymore. I'm not even allowed to go down that hallway anymore. And like by this time, like it was almost embarrassing because you knew a lot of the teachers thought that I did sexually harass him, I'm sure, even though my name did get clear. They did pull the cameras, they did see that, you know, obviously I didn't. And for the rest of my 8th grade year, honestly, it was just shit. Middle school was probably like harder for me than what high school was, which I don't think a lot of people have that experience, but unfortunately that's just how it is. But I will admit that it did make me learn a lot of just how you portray yourself, that it really could be misconstrued in any way, shape, or form. So obviously a lot of time has passed from that. I don't necessarily hold a grudge anymore. Kind of. But yes, that is how I sexually harassed my teacher and got suspended for it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, do that whole shebang, and have a great one, guys. Bye.